Since the once called risky experiment turned billion-dollar franchise that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, more studios have been trying to come up with cinematic universes of their own. These include such repeated failed attempts as Universal's Monster Universe, to the just won't die and somehow keeps going on DC Cinematic Universe. Even Star Wars is now turning its future to such a model. And now the new contenders Warner Brothers again with the quote-unquote Potterverse, starting with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, directed by David Yates, who did the last 4 Harry Potter movies. Beast has 2 different plots that sort of merge into one plot near the end. Newt Scamander, played by Eddie Redmayne, or that shouting guy from Jupiter Ascending, is visiting New York for some reason, where he comes across a group called the Second Salemers, who are preaching about exposing and killing witches. He accidentally bumps into Jacob Kowalski, a World War I vet going to a bank to get a loan to open a bakery. They accidentally swap cases and Jacob accidentally lets out some of the titular beasts. Meanwhile, Tina Goldstein, a former wizard cop, or Aurora, tries to let the president know what Newt's up to, while the major wizards are trying to deal with something ravaging the streets of New York. Then there's the subplot with the second Salemer mistreating her adopted son, Credence, who's being manipulated by Percival Graves to find a child carrying a creature called an Obscurus. Newt is a fun, awkwardly charming character who's basically a zoologist Doctor Who. Catherine Waterston as Tina Goldstein and Alison Sudol as her mind-reading sister Queenie are great, as well as Dan Fogler as the schlubby New Yorker who gets dragged into the secret magical world, who pretty much functions as the normal human companion to Newt's doctor. And that's what this movie feels like, parts Doctor Who and Pokemon. Ezra Miller plays the abused and soft-spoken Credence well. I like Ezra Miller, but seriously, he's no Flash. The characters are the best part, and almost enough to overshadow the somewhat nagging plot. At the beginning of the movie, there's a mention of a dark wizard that's totally not Voldemort, by the name of Gellert Grindelwald, who's pretty pointless. There's a revelation of his character at the end that holds no sort of weight because he's not mentioned past the opening scene of the movie. The plot of Newt trying to get all his beasts back and the subplot about the Obscurus wreaking havoc across New York don't really mesh well until the end, where the problem of saving the beasts is pretty much solved so they can focus on the Obscurus problem, which is also solved to get to the pointless villain reveal I mentioned earlier. And the idea of the second Salemers spreading fear of wizards isn't even addressed and is taken over by the Obscurus plot. It's here where the movie suffers. Why the wizarding community fears the beast and why Newton wants to educate them isn't really explained or shown, past Newt saying the community fears them and he wants to educate them. The movie could have just focused on the idea of prejudice against magical beasts and Newt trying to convince the magic world that they are special and should be preserved. The movie could have used a little more fine-tuning plot-wise, basically. How Fantastic Beasts expands the Potterverse is showing the American wizard community, which is like the English wizard community, except they have a president, and they call muggles nomads, which is dumb and I hate saying it. The wizards other than the main characters don't really serve any purpose to the story other than to brush off the protagonist, and then come into conflict with them, almost have them executed, and then thank them at the end. I mean, Newt and Tina were pretty forgiving for people that were going to kill them. And I'm just supposed to ignore and accept that this secret world full of magic and whimsy has an execution chamber? Can't they just kill people by waving their wands? Do they have to have an elaborate capital punishment device? Anyway, they also have a scene of a magical speakeasy run by a goblin played by Ron Perlman. But scenes of world building like this only happen occasionally. More expansion like this could really help to justify more movies in this universe. Fantastic Beasts has been called a prequel, which can be confusing. Fantastic Beasts is a prequel in a sense that it is before the Harry Potter movies, but it doesn't set up the events or story of Harry Potter, which is what I like. It's a completely different story set in an earlier time period. It's more like a Temple of Doom than a Star Wars episodes 1 through 3. There's plans to make a series of films following Fantastic Beasts, 5 apparently. Honestly, I think instead of making sequels to Fantastic Beasts, they should try to take a Star Wars approach and have a series of unrelated movies, all focusing on a different aspect of this world, then try to make another long branching story. Have different characters in different settings and different stories, but that's just my take. Fantastic Beasts' plot could have used a little reworking, but the characters and character moments pretty much make up for it, as does the world. The main cast is great, and I feel it's nice to return to the magical world of the Potterverse. In terms of attempt to follow the current trend of cinematic universes, this is a better start than the DC cinematic universe. If they can manage to make more expansive movies and focus on other aspects of this universe, with more characters and other stories with more cohesive plots, I think you could very well enjoy more of the Potterverse. If you like the Harry Potter films, you'll enjoy Fantastic Beasts. and as a newcomer I found this movie made me want to watch the others. I give Fantastic Beasts 4 out of 5 stars.